Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the program co-founder and reporter at DropSite News, co-host of Breaking Points, and a guy who is still wearing the exact same outfit he was when Zoran Mamdani was announced the winner of the mayoral race. Ryan Grimm, welcome back to the program.
Not changing for 8 years.
There you go.
It's good luck.
I love it. Don't take that jacket off. We need that luck. Hey, I want to start off by just saying, mentioning that I know you guys at DropSite are raising money. I think you hit your goal, but I have a feeling this lawsuit is going to be a little more expensive than that. You guys are being sued. Owen Jones wrote for you a piece talking about the bias of the editor or the publisher at BBC.
A bunch of people at BBC, yeah. And
the bias when it came to reporting on what Israel was doing in Gaza. And the BBC in Britain, the defamation laws are very different than they are in this country.
Sure.
And you guys are being sued. And I mean, you guys do not have the deep pockets that the BBC has.
Right.
That's my guess.
They have the public's pockets.
Exactly.
Right. Although it's an editor and not the BBC itself. And they're currently suing only Owen, but we're doing the legal defense of it. Because we're in the U.S., there's some question about whether or not they'll be able to add us directly to the lawsuit. But yeah, we've already spent about 40 grand defending this and annoying, legal calls and back and forths and all these different filings. We weren't going to say anything about it, but the Telegraph broke it yesterday. And so we put up a donation page yesterday. And overnight, and I haven't mentioned this before, overnight so far, we've raised more than $100,000.
Wow, Ryan.
So we're over what we've spent so far. Now, we're in the very early stages. We're going to need more. We have liability insurance. The deductible is about $250. So if we can get to $250, then we won't have to basically pay anything unless it goes over then some certain amount. Also,
you buy $250, you don't mean $250.
Do not. I do not. $250,000. Not sure what that is in pounds or whatever they use over there. But we also could recoup these costs if he loses and if we win. And we expect that we will win. But in order to win, we have to fight. And we intend to. We stand by the story. So deep appreciation for everybody who gave. You can find a link. It's in my
we'll put the link in our podcast and YouTube description today as well.
As independent media gets bigger, and this matters, I think, for everybody, you're going to see lawsuits against independent companies, whether it's shows like this or Breaking Points or DropSite. And if those are costly lawsuits, if they lose and it turns out that independent media can fight back, that's good for everybody.
Yes, without a doubt. I was planning on donating before I heard that you got $100,000, and I'm going to continue to do that.
Give a little less now that
I'm going to cut it down a couple of percentage points, but it's okay. But honestly, this is really important because these type of suits are intimidation tactics, and each time somebody wins against these type of suits, it sets a precedent that is helpful and makes sort of frivolous suits less and less likely. And by frivolous, I mean ones that are meant to drive people out of business. I mean, we've seen this, right? I mean, Thiel did this with Gawker, and Elon Musk is doing it with Media Matters. I mean, this makes a big difference. And
hey, if we win and we recoup the costs, anybody want a refund? Just email us and get your money back.
Oh, sweet. All right. Well, then I will make a note of that. All right. Let's talk about this. This was probably the best election in a while for people who want Republicans to lose, and like in a twist for people in the sort of like left edges of the Democratic Party who want to sort of build have been working on building a more progressive wing of the party to hopefully like take over the party. I mean, I don't know.
Can you remember a off-year elections like this that were this partisan? Like, we know, of course, 2010 with the red wave and, you know, even 2018 in response to Trump. But like an off-year election that is just basically uniform Democratic wins across the board. That's not a typical dynamic, right?
Outside, like, who won the New York mayoral in 2017? But 2017, the first Trump year, was pretty big.
That was second to
Democratic.
Didn't de Blasio, that was the second de Blasio.
Yeah,
Second de Blasio. Yeah, that rather forgettable election.
Right.
But so if you remember, like right after Trump, there was this huge, you know, Women's March, and then 2017 and 2018, there was this huge reaction against Trump, but it hadn't really coalesced into like a vision for what the party would do if they took over. But now it's starting to come together a little bit. And like with Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey in particular, an interesting case, like the way she went after landlords who were like using algorithms to like collude. And she had this line that where she's like, look, I'm going to go after them. I'm declaring a state of emergency. I'm going directly at these landlords. My opponent will not, because he gets all his money from these landlords. Like that's it in a nutshell right there. That's the whole.
We played that clip, I think, and she used specifically affordability, and she mentioned about landlords, and there was another word. She used the word freeze in there.
Freeze the utility
utilities.
prices.
Yes,
and so Zoran won in June. In August, she's like, freeze the utility prices, which great. Like electricity prices are through the roof. Like that's smart.
And as a movement, like question, like that's at the end of the day, if the existence of Zoran Mamdani pushes the rhetoric and hopefully the actions really of these politicians, that is a good thing because it creates a certain momentum, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I also just want to say that when we were playing the coverage on CNN of Dana Bash really excitedly playing up the big wins by Spanberger and Sherrill, which, you know, that's significant. But it's like the thesis they have is that, look, moderates can still win in overwhelming numbers like this. But they are completely discounting the fact that we saw swings for Latino voters and young people, and the latter of which I think are young people watching Zoran on TikTok and Instagram and getting more engaged in their politics, even if they're not in New York City. They're pretending like that's not a real thing, but Zoran's popularity has elevated races across the country, in my view. And there's no way to prove that, but that's just my thought.
It's for several years now, it's been embarrassing to be a Democrat or to say that you support the Democrats. It's like a humiliating thing to say in social circles, especially among young people. But Mamdani's making it cool. So I think there's something to that it's like he's showing a path that you can actually work within the Democratic Party, advocate, for something good against villains, and, pull it off.
Let's talk about the sort of like second and third order implications of them. And I guess this is a second order implication, but there's more. One of the biggest losers outside of Andrew Cuomo and I guess Chris Cuomo and maybe Greenblatt at the ADL and Bill Ackman has got to be Chuck Schumer. I mean, this is embarrassing now. Like it was enraging before, but now it's just like completely embarrassing. We had already seen like some, I don't want to call it a mutiny, but We had seen people like Heinrich in New Mexico coming out in favor of Plattner.
Yep.
We had seen, I think, the same thing happening in Michigan, where the chosen DSCC, the Democratic Senate Campaign Committee choice, was getting sort of snubbed. But I think Adam Schiff was actually going out to, talking to Mallory McMurrow, not my favorite candidate there, but also not the
Haley
DNC,
Stevens.
Haley Stevens, who was the sort of establishment pick. And Schumer not endorsing this guy, and his non-endorsement meaning absolutely zero. This Schumer is sort of like a dead man walking in terms of his Senate seat. I mean, or at least that's the sense I get these days.
And he still hasn't said who he voted for, right?
He refuses to.
I mean, unless and every day it's going to get harder, because if he has to admit that he voted for Cuomo, as the stench around Cuomo just gets fouler and fouler, it's going to be that much harder for him to do. I had Mamdani on our program several years ago when he was doing a hunger strike for the taxi cab medallion issue. He was doing an inside-outside thing with Schumer at the time. Like they were a pair. Like the two of them led that fight together. So Schumer is not like new to this guy. He doesn't know every single assembly member necessarily, but like this is somebody.
Well, Ryan, you can do the hunger strike with somebody and still not really know them deeply inside.
I guess so. Yes, I guess so. I don't think Schumer did the hunger strike, by the way. I think he was.
Well, you can see somebody do a hunger strike and not know them deeply.
But yeah, I mean, clearly he had a balancing act where he's trying to raise national money to run these Senate campaigns, and just from the pure political side of it, clearly he felt like it was going to hurt him in his efforts to do fundraising at the national level if he endorsed him or was campaigning with him. But at some point you have to show some level of leadership and just tell your donors, like, look, he won the Democratic nomination. I'm a Democrat.
What am I going to do? Right. What am I going to do? Like,
I'm not doing Cuomo. Like,
right. But that's where he's ill-equipped. This is the problem.
Yeah.
Like when we're, bless you, Matt, when we're like talking about how to rebuild the Democratic Party, the leader only being focused on fundraising from big money donors, and many of them are Zionists who are just outright racist about Mamdani. I mean, we have to be speaking about this in those terms. They are Islamophobic and they are racist towards him, and that is their attitude. This is hurting the party's brand in so many different ways that, like, it's also hurting their ability to be a durable coalition in opposition to him, because it's not just what Mamdani stands for in policy that is important. It's what he stands for in how you do politics, having volunteer armies, engaging voters that are non-traditional voters, and the whole infrastructure that builds up Chuck Schumer, the donor class and the consultant class, is invested in not doing that kind of politics. They're invested in ads and fees that are not about people power. It's about consulting. And so it's Chuck Schumer's inability to endorse Mamdani is indicative of him clinging on to an old way of doing politics that has destroyed us, that has led us to this fascist moment.
But it's also in his self-interest, in the sense that he could actually match the big dollar donors at this point with angry small dollar donations from Democrats across the country. You could probably exceed, what you're able to get from these, giant, $20,000 plate fundraisers that he does. But then who is he and what's his role?
Exactly.
Like the party that's funded by grassroots donors is not going to necessarily pick him as their leader.
Right.
And so in order for him to stay on top, he has to keep the old structure in place.
And it also, I think, sort of like it doesn't take many steps to sort of say, like, wait a second. Haven't we heard over and over again that these donors don't dictate what you do? Right. Like, I mean, it's so sort of like basic that we forget to sort of just say that one question of like, there is no calculation that you can come up with where it doesn't make sense for Chuck Schumer to endorse Mamdani unless he is explicitly being told not to by his donors and has no ability, like you say, to push back on the donors and just say like, hey guys, I'm going to jam here. Yeah. Even at the end of the day, it's going to be better. I'm going to be a better tool for you if I endorse this guy than if I hang myself out on a limb and you're making me saw off the limb that you put me on. He doesn't have the ability to do that. I mean, this is like, it's not just sort of corrupt in a sort of, like a more general sense of the word. It's also just wildly incompetent. Like, do your corruptness well, buddy. That's what Andrew Cuomo was able to do in a lot of respects. Like, he built the whole IDC as a way of making it not look like he was just doing Ken Langone's business. And it made it more obtuse, I think. But Chuck Schumer doesn't even have the ability to do that, which I find fascinating. But let's also talk about like the more impacts from this, because, and not obviously just Mamdani's election, but the Democrats won, as far as I can tell, and still things are drip drabbing in. Like, I don't know, like the Moms of Liberty lost in every school board election across the country. They've lost all of them. Or, some board in, aside from the state board in Georgia, like you're seeing this all over the place. Yeah. Like they won everything. They can't find one loss. Yeah. And in the days before the election, there was a lot of reporting that there were 8 Democratic senators who were in the mix to cave on the shutdown. And just today, they scuttled another attempt by the Republicans to do it. And it seems obvious to me that like the size of this win is why the government is still shut down, because we can't come up with any justification. It's like the Democrats are befuddled by the fact that it's working.
Yeah. Yes, I think that a lot of the senators were running on fumes into the election, and were like you said, they were close to being like, okay, like we put up our fight. Time to, now the exchanges are open. We made our point. Time to open things back up. But with the election, and with Trump freaking out about, is he for affordability? Does he forget about affordability? Now he wants to get rid of the filibuster, but Republicans in the Senate don't want to get rid of the filibuster. And so Republicans are then actually kind of pressured to come to some sort of deal, because they want to get a deal done before Trump forces them to get rid of the filibuster. Like, they don't want to get rid of the filibuster. They don't even have the votes to get rid of the filibuster. So all of this pressure from Trump to get rid of it is bad for them. They would like to move beyond that and get it done. Also, like, I still don't understand why Republicans won't just do it. Like, you're the party in power. It's going to hurt you when people are paying $4,000 a month for their premiums because you fought to make sure their premiums were $4,000 a month. Like, since when does Trump care about the deficit? It seems like just ego for him. He just keeps saying, I'm not going to be extorted. I'm not going to do it under pressure. It's like, well, okay,
well, he's deluded, okay. Ryan. I mean, he's literally
wait, you're asking why don't Republicans just do? Yeah. Why don't they just?
Because he doesn't care about the future of the Republican Party. This is like this whole second term was motivated by spite, a desire to stay out of prison. And like, now that he's in power, he doesn't see a future. He knows he's dying, like at some point, he's up there. And he doesn't think about the future of the Republican Party, or thinks basically, I think, probably so highly of himself that if they just stay close to him, they can weather out the midterms. Or actually, it's probably this. They think that they can gerrymander their way out of it. And now his response to this is, let's go after mail-in voting, because he understands what this is going to mean.
Yeah. He also doesn't seem to mind when Republicans lose when he's not on the ballot.
Yep.
And he even posted about that a couple times. Oh, Trump not on the ballot, Republicans lose. Like, he's sort of, because it feeds his narcissism and his celebration of himself to see Republicans suffer when he's not actually on the ballot.
Let's talk about this in terms of like the filibuster, because I mean, I'm of two minds about the filibuster. I have wanted to get rid of the filibuster for a long time. This is the way that political parties, Democrats and Republicans, hide what their agenda is. And it gives them the excuse. It sort of functions in the same way the IDC did in New York State, which is like, I wanted to vote for, the PRO Act, but, we should definitely, cut every department, whatever it is, but, the filibuster, that type of thing. Here is Steve Bannon. Now, one of and I imagine you have a similar notion of this. I think Trump is going to use Mamdani's win as a predicate. He would have done it anyways, but he's going to use it as a predicate to send federal troops into New York City. On top of which, I got to think that they're very nervous about the results across the country and the Democratic sweeps here, because what is the opportunity to win in the midterms for them? Like, it's narrowed significantly in terms of like what these numbers show. And with California passing Prop 50 and Maryland saying they're going to redistrict, and this sort of like the Democrats redistricting is going to mitigate some of what the Republicans are doing, and the Republicans redistricting in an environment like we see now could very well end up costing them more seats than it gains them, right? Because they have to dilute their plus 15 seats to go down to like a plus 7, and all of a sudden
Texas with the Latino vote, if it flips in the way it did in Jersey, they're asking.
They're going to lose seats in Texas after this redistricting. So there's going to be, I don't know if it's Miller or Vogt or whomever, there's going to be some panic, because Democrats controlling one or two of the houses in Congress is definitely like an obstacle to their agenda. You can't completely stop them, but you can make it much more difficult. Here's Steve Bannon basically articulating that, calling for the Senate to get rid of a filibuster so that they can actually get into the getaway car and get going before the midterms.
And I will tell you right now, as God is my witness, if we lose the midterms and we lose 2028, some in this room are going to prison, myself included. They're not going to stop. They're getting more and more and more radical. And we have to counter that. And what do we have to counter it with? We have to counter it with more action, more intense action, more urgency. We're burning daylight. If you look across every aspect of this, we have to codify what President Trump has done by executive order. Right? We have to codify it. And people say, well, they're just going to be messing bills. Senate. We got to put aside these structural barriers and get on with it. President Trump today gave to the Senate when they came over for breakfast. Even Lindsey Graham, some of the guys he liked, and some of these institutions, I understand. This is a very tough decision to make. And you're going to see some people in the conservative movement that not in a million years, because I talked to him today, quite frankly, I had Hawley on the show this morning, Josh Hawley, and he's talking about it, and I'm trying to play the institution. Well, they called me up this afternoon and said, let's go through the 10 reasons we need to do it, and these are heavy hitters on what I would call the constitutional, the limited government constitutionalist in our movement. And they're about to come out over the next couple of days and make this argument, because it said, look, we have to understand that if we don't take this to the maximum, a maximalist strategy now with a sense of urgency, and in doing this, seize the institutions. If we don't do that now, we're going to lose this chance forever, because you're never going to have another Trump, right? You're just not going to.
Starting from the end, working forward, I remember, a couple of years ago where Bannon was like, Trump is just the beginning of this. Well, this is a real movement and blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. I think he knows, we are watching sort of like three-quarters maximalist type of situation here. They thought things were going to go better at this point, and things are going sideways for Trump. And so he knows this is it. This is the opportunity, because the blowback from this hopefully will be huge. So I don't know, where are you on this? Because if they get rid of the filibuster, there's a lot of stuff they can do. If I was them, that's what I would do. I would get rid of the filibuster, because this could be their big last bite at the apple. But it's going to mean the next 11 or 12 months is going to be we're going to be at peak authoritarianism, peak brutality by ICE, peak, we're going to see really, really radical stuff over the next 12 months, I think.
Agree with you. If I were them, I'd be saying the same thing as Bannon is saying up there. And it does go to show that he's not as confident that this is going to be a 50-year, permanent majority, as he was before. And part of it is a significant reason for that is that they're wrecking the economy, and unnecessarily and deliberately. They took over a growing and, pretty solid economy. A lot of people suffering in it, but relative to where it's been over the decades, it was going well. And through the chaotic policies, how many, hundreds of thousands of, federal workers, undone, tariffs put on, taken off, put on, taken off, putting, enormous numbers of businesses out of business. Now they might get overturned entirely. We don't see the BLS data because the government is shut down. But the word, from the private people who are counting this is that you're seeing job losses that we haven't seen in 20 years. Mortgage interest rates are still high. The one thing he's got is that the Fed is probably going to cut rates, but that's only because he keeps undermining the strength of the economy. If that goes on for another year, the Senate is really in play. I think if Republicans if they lose the House and keep the Senate, that's maybe even better for them, because then they can 2 years from now blame Democrats for whatever they're doing. But they could even lose the Senate. Iowa is in one of the worst depressions that it's been in.
Yep.
Patola is up a couple of points in the, we're way out from the election, but in Alaska.
Yep.
I personally think that Plattner is going to beat Janet Mills, and I think it's going to beat Susan Collins by even more than he will beat Janet Mills, frankly.
Yeah. That gets you 50. Yeah.
Yep.
And then maybe Sherrod Brown. It's a tough call. North Carolina, is North Carolina up? I think North Carolina is up.
Roy Cooper.
Yes,
Roy Cooper.
Roy Cooper's running in North Carolina. There's opportunity for that to be eked out in some fashion, and
frankly, I think that the Republicans are made a mistake by not Marjorie Taylor Greene versus Ossoff. Who are they running? Another college football coach? It's just insane. I'm pretty sure they are. It's just they're tripling down on more establishment Republicans at a time where the base is not that interested in that.
Yeah, she's going to be out there. She's going to take a huge chunk out of that guy in Georgia because she's so mad that she didn't get Trump's blessing. Talk about I hate to be a little bit hackneyed here, but she's scorned and she is taking it out on him. In a big way. But let's get into
seen that coming. Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She seems such a stable
Yeah, I've always thought of her and Nancy Mace as the two people you could always count on.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Yes.
Well, she was praising Nancy Pelosi on CNN yesterday.
Yeah, I'm an
Marjorie
MTG
Taylor Greene
fan lately. That's for sure.
Yeah. She's really trying to make herself seem less radical and insane.
I knew she would get dunked on by the right for that, but what she said about Pelosi, she was clear. She's like, I'm just talking about her effectiveness. She's good at getting stuff done. And as somebody who is critical of what Pelosi got done a lot of the time, I'll say that she had incredible tactical and strategic political skills.
She
when it
never
came to
lost a vote.
running.
She would never bring a vote to the floor that she wasn't going to win.
But like, just compare that to Marjorie Taylor Greene running around the halls of Congress, seemingly a little drunk. I don't know if that's the case, and opening AOC's mail slot and going, "Hey, Sandy, hey," or whatever. Like, she's trying to make herself seem less insane, and it seems like
she's doing a good job, but
she's doing a good job. Unfortunately,
pretty easy to come down from that.
True.
You can, that can turn on a dime. So too, obviously, and we're going to talk more about the tariffs next week on the program. And the Lutnick sons, Uday and Kusei, I think is their name. They are primed to make. I want to say millions, but I feel like there could be a B associated with this, because they bought up all of those sort of like. Tariff
IOUs,
recoupment coupons. And I think the Supreme Court, there are two areas where the Supreme Court is going to protect, and that's going to be the Fed, and it's going to be their buddies who are, standing to lose because of the tariffs. So we'll see about that. But I want to also touch
the Witkoff boys out there scraping Bitcoin from every tin pot dictator around the country.
I mean, the amount of enrichment by, I don't know, maybe 1,000 people who are, it's just, I think we're never going to fully understand the size of this sort of like extraction. But, and it's weird that it's almost like a secondary or third issue. Like, oh yeah, no, they're robbing everybody blind. But that's actually not the biggest problem that we have.
Right.
It's the authoritarianism. And so, I mean, I wanted to stay with this scenario where they do get rid of the filibuster, where they do, because there's a big fight going on that is somewhat submerged on the right. And it's all around like the issue of Israel and Gaza very well may have cost Kamala Harris the election. We can never know these things for sure, but it's clearly, created a huge cleave within the Democratic coalition. And you see what happens to the youth vote with someone who recognizes the reality of what's going on with Israel and Gaza versus, what we saw just 12 months ago. And it's not like anything happened over the course of the past 12 months that was fundamentally different than what we saw at this time in 2024. But it's also functioning on the right, and it's becoming a cleave on the right. Now, where those lines are drawn, I am sort of unclear. It's not necessarily that there's a huge conscience for the Palestinians, but there is a burgeoning anti-Semitism that has found a good vehicle here to articulate this stuff on the right. And this stuff at Heritage, I want to just play this clip. This is a leaked video, and we can talk about like sort of who wanted to leak this, where Kevin Roberts, who had come out a week ago in this weird non sequitur video that seemed to come out of nowhere.
Right. Like
who is asking for this?
Like that meme, everyone ... Kevin Roberts.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you talking about? He came out with a video saying, it's America first. We're not going to kowtow to Israel. And then like, just like bizarrely, we're also not going to cancel Tucker Carlson or Nick Fuentes. And then people are just like, well, what?
Thank you for your attention to this matter.
Exactly. And apparently at the Heritage Foundation, they have some Israeli supporters and Israel supporters at the Heritage Foundation. And they also have Jewish people working there and other people who still cling to the notion that we're only supposed to use that stuff for the base. We're not supposed to believe it ourselves. And
right. It's okay for Muslims and Hindus, but come on.
Yeah, we're not doing like, and
with our Judeo-Christian, Come on.
No, but that's it. But that's it. It's the Christian nationalists. It's the Christian nationalists. That's who are like reasserting themselves.
The Christian nationalists hate that term Judeo-Christian.
Yep.
They're like, stop with this.
Yep.
Yes, it's Christianio-Christian. It's not
Christian.
It's Christian. And Kevin Roberts is one of these Christian nationalists, just like Russ Vogt, who came out of that operation there. And it seems like there's people at the Heritage, like, you know, we don't see this as much, but apparently there has been a lot of turmoil about this. So 6 or 7 days in, Roberts has to do a video in front of like the extended Heritage Foundation family. It was a struggle session, right? Like they're asking him questions, and a lot of people are saying stuff like this. Let's play this one. We have 1 or 2 questions that were asked there, just to give you a sense of how deep this is going within the right-wing circles.
What is the role of someone who is doing this, who's mainstreaming a neo-Nazi Stalinist online, and who believes that Churchill was the cause of World War II? What role does that person have inside the conservative movement, looking back to what Bill Buckley told us at the very beginning of this movement? That's my question.
Robert Rector, I love you. Thank you.
I
agree with you. And one thing, there'd be a lot of things to say, so we can get to another question, but I want to address your fair question. I can speak to Heritage's role, which I see very clearly now, one of the lessons learned 6 days in. And that is, we do what we've always done, which is to confront those noxious ideas. And secondly, to be clear, that Fuentes, people like Fuentes, they aren't conservatives. There's no way that can be
I don't think so.
construed that way, or at least in a way that's persuasive.
Okay.
But we also, and this is not disputing what you've said, but adding to it a tactical desire, we have to understand that in 2025, that evil person, Fuentes, although I still have hope for his soul, has an audience of several million people. And at least some of that audience might be open to be converted. My video didn't do that, although the intention was to open that idea, not to endorse what Fuentes is saying, but quite the opposite, to appeal to them. And
so here he is saying, somebody, I mean, there's so many layers to this, but you got a guy who's a longtime Heritage Foundation guy who says, you know, Buckley made it very explicit that we police the conservative movement. Now, the reality is, and there's been a lot of stuff about Buckley that's come out in the past couple of years, and people have done some deep dives. He didn't quite police them in the same way, but he made it seem like he was policing them. And what Roberts did here is he failed to make it look like we were policing them.
Right.
But here he is admitting that, okay, the guy loves Stalin, Nick Fuentes. I don't know if he does, but this is what he said in the Tucker Carlson. He thinks Hitler was a great guy. He thinks Churchill was a bum. He thinks, you know, he's anti-Semitic. He loves Nazis. But he's also popular.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean,
Eyeballs are eyeballs.
eyeballs, you know, and the idea that Kevin Roberts actually believes that he can convert some groypers by whatever it is that he did is laughable. I mean, if he
said in the other video that basically his ideas are worthy of debate. So that's antithetical to what he just said right there to the question.
Oh, he's learned his lesson over the past 6 days.
But he's speaking to 2 different audiences. He was speaking to the groypers more there, and now he's speaking to people within Heritage that are concerned. And I mean, want your thoughts on this, Ryan, but it feels like he was basically trying to say, welcome groypers into our movement, but donors, don't worry, we'll try to convert them.
I mean, who believes that? If he actually believes that, I think like, wow, this guy's a lunatic. He doesn't really believe it, though. I think he just knows, like, we need to protect our right flank because that's the future of our party.
Yep.
And here is, let's play one more clip of just like how deep the anger runs. That last guy was sort of like approached it on more sort of like philosophical, high-minded, Buckley-esque. How could you? Like, what has been going on here? I am so surprised.
Say it ain't so.
Yes. What's the line from Casablanca? Like gambling? What?
In this establishment?
Yes. Here is let's
Fascists in heritage?
This one, if I'm not mistaken, is, I don't want to say it's a question, it's a comment from somebody who works at Heritage who's basically like, you got to get the F out of here. And there was about half a dozen of these. He's going to stay because it's a Christian nationalist organization, but it's disillusioning some of these people who have been completely deluded. It's changing. They're going from deluded to a different delusion, I guess.
This institution moving forward. And I also know that that sentiment is shared by others in this room.
Oh, wait, go back just a little bit. Go back, we just 20 seconds, because I think she says, I don't have faith in you to run this anymore. Go back just, yeah.
Under you. I also have every reason to believe you are a good and decent man, and I know that you're my brother in Christ. And yet, after all of the events of the last week, I stand here today with no ability to say I have confidence in your leadership for this institution moving forward. And I also know that that sentiment is shared by others in this room who, for reasons that I think are perfectly reasonable, especially given what we've seen this last week, are afraid to say that exact same thing openly and directly. But as you yourself have said, now is the time for courage. And Dr. Roberts, over the last week, you have shown a stunning lack of both courage and judgment. There's nothing ambiguous about what we saw happen. Tucker Carlson invited a Holocaust-denying neo-Nazi onto his show and then spent roughly 2 hours doing little more than flirting with him. And when our friends and allies on the right, staunch conservatives, rightly and reasonably criticized Tucker for throwing softball questions at a Hitler apologist, we had options at that point. We could have, and in my opinion, should have, joined them. We could have led from the front and lovingly rebuked our ally. Loving rebuke is an action that, respectfully, even Helen Keller could see is not the same thing as participating in cancel culture.
Okay. Can we just mention, like, you got to make the Helen Keller joke in the middle?
This is an 80s bit?
I know. I mean, that's what I find so
strays.
fascinating. Yeah, really. I mean,
Stevie Wonder, too.
Just want to make it clear, I'm not woke.
Yeah.
Like, I'll make fun of handicapped people, but, you know.
The Holocaust is
Yeah,
my
the
life.
Holocaust. Hold on. My brother in Christ. Go.
But
Go.
Okay.
No, let's let this play out.
I'll let you weigh in right after, Ryan.
And lovingly rebuked our ally. Loving rebuke is an action that, respectfully, even Helen Keller could see is not the same thing as participating in cancel culture. We also could have just said nothing at all. Instead, we managed to scrape together an initial response that, at best, was equal parts incoherent, unhelpful, and naive. At worst, as others have referenced, it was more akin to a masterclass in cowardice that ran cover for the most unhinged dregs of the far right. The next 4 days, I think, for me, were even more worrying because you appeared to dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge any real semblance of accountability. Nothing about that seemed to indicate you really wanted the buck to stop with you. It seemed at first as though you wanted the buck to stop with your chief of staff, and only after it became clear that Ryan falling on his sword would be insufficient to quell the outrage both inside and outside of this building did we finally see you manage the courage to utter the words, "I made a mistake." And quite frankly, even if you had managed to say that 4 hours after that video, it would have been a weak response. But sir, it took you 4 days to say that. And even then, the mistake was couched largely in terms of, well, I'm sorry you guys just didn't really understand the words that were coming out of my mouth, and maybe I should have spoken better, but also maybe try to listen better this time. With all due respect, Dr. Roberts, we all understood what you said in the video and in the ensuing response. It wasn't that we weren't ready for some additional nuance. It was that little of what you said actually made sense to us. We watched you seem perfectly willing to attack all of our friends and allies on the right, but say nothing about the guy who just said he dislikes nothing more than Christian Zionists, a term which he seems to use to mean basically anyone who supports Israel and includes many people in this room.
Mm-hmm.
It's so difficult to watch someone take this type of. It's really amazing.
He's already dead. He's already dead.
Exactly.
And he
I
might
mean-
still be fired. You're to your point about him staying. You could imagine a world in which it's like, no, actually, you're out of here.
Definitely. But also I can imagine a world in which he stays and this like starts like there's a rival heritage foundation. I mean, there's this fight that is so deep and it's not getting really much coverage at all. And because it runs against the narrative that really the mainstream, and I'm including the establishments of both parties here, that there is an anti-Semitism problem on the left when there is, I think, not only not one. I mean, look, there's anti-Semites, in any political faction, but there isn't a problem on the left. It is not a burgeoning industry on the left like it is on the right. It is metastasizing on the right. And
a good example would be if you tried to do an anti-Semitic YouTube program, you would not find an audience on the left. That doesn't exist. You do it on the right, you got millions of people watching. So that kind of tells you like where that audience and where that problem is.
Well,
Ryan, like the Center for American Progress going like, well, we need to, I mean, I don't, off the top of my head, I don't even know someone on the leftist who is like sort of that virulent of an anti-Semite. I'm sure there are some, but I don't know who they are.
Well, they won't even embrace anti-Zionists.
But just the fact that I don't know who that is, can you imagine like the Center for American Progress coming out with a video and going like, we stand by this person? Yeah. Like, it's just insane.
But Ryan, like what is, I mean, I know that you have on Breaking Points, you have two hosts who are conservative. Like, what is your understanding of what they're dealing with this issue on the right? I'm curious.
I mean, it's too, conservatives don't want to hear it from me, but like the problem is their underlying Christian nationalist ideology being taken to its logical extreme. Like, and the like breakdown in kind of gatekeeping media allowing it to be taken to its logical extreme. Like in the past, you could see where Christian nationalism would head, but you couldn't get there because you'd put fences around it. Because like a Fuentes couldn't build up an audience. They just couldn't. You'd have the Birch Society like doing their mail stuff or whatever, but like you could not let them speak at the conventions, not let them on the 3 broadcast news programs, and then they're kind of boxed out of the national conversation. You can't do that anymore. So it allows them to take their ideology to its extreme. And if you say that Hindus, are going to burn in hell, the amount of anti-Indian hatred on the right now is exploding.
Fuentes went deep in attacking
Usha Vance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you say that Muslims don't belong in America and should all be deported, even the ones that were born here, and they're all a threat and they're terrorists, and then you have Fuentes people come in and be like, cool, we agree, and the Jews, and then the right is like, no, hold on, that's beyond the pale, and the Fuentes people are like, why? We hate everybody who's not Christian. They're not Christian. We hate them too. And so they don't have an answer to that. And the answer would be, we're all Americans. It's a multicultural, multi-faith democracy. What matters, you do the MLK stuff like that. Like that's the answer to that. But they're so dug in on anti-wokeness and Christian nationalism that they won't say that. Even that woman in the clip had to like go through these contortions.
Yeah.
To talk about how she's not woke. And and so they're kind of stuck.
The real question is like how this is going to play out, because they don't seem to have figured out a way. I mean, and this has been the trajectory, right? I mean, of the Republican Party for the past 20 years, since as long as you and I have been watching this stuff, is watching a Republican Party that would exploit racism, that would exploit Islamophobia, that would exploit all of these anti-Semitism to a certain extent, and to watch them exploit it in their electoral base, to them actually the electoral base taking over that element of the party. And you know, I mean,
you keep seeing a version of it, like with, you know, Boehner elevating the Tea Party, and then the Tea Party throws them out. Tea Party elevates the Trump wing throws them out. Trump wing elevates Fuentes, lets them back on Twitter because they buy it, and then, you know, we'll see how it ends.
Yeah, and Matt has this point that I think is important too. Like, you have Vivek Ramaswamy running in that really important Ohio gubernatorial election in 2026, and we saw that clip of him being confronted by a Christian nationalist kid, basically saying, or let alone Ann Coulter opening when going on his podcast and saying, "Just so you know, I wouldn't vote for you because you're an Indian." Like, that's going to have implications for them. And Trump endorsed Vivek, but is the base going to kind of reject that because they are too racist for it at this point?
Certainly a sizable chunk of them are, and the real danger for them is that audience is there. And so now you have people who you go out and buy a microphone and make a YouTube show. 25% of the country is like with Fuentes. And so that's this massive opportunity for these right-wing content creators to go and just feed more of that stuff. So it's a very vicious cycle that I don't see a way out for them. I feel like they're going to be taken over by it.
Somebody's got to write a book about how there was, and I'm sure there is, but the Christian nationalists went a little bit underground following the Bush years, and they were submerged. But then they popped back up with Mike Pence as the vice president, and all the while they're backfilling and it's growing. And then now they don't have like a leader per se in the administration. I guess Vance on some level is that guy.
But he's a Catholic. Like, the evangelical Christian nationalists, they see Trump as their leader just because he is a stand-in for an evangelical preacher.
Chosen by God, and a providence.
Yeah. It is. It's going to be interesting to see where they go just in the next 11 months or so, because this is not going to go away, and it's only going to sort of like gain momentum, it seems to me, on the right. They have no idea how to deal with this.
Yeah, and a huge part of it that fueled the rise, I think, was genuinely the genocide in Gaza. Like, a lot of these young Christians saw that, didn't like it, and then when they spoke out about it, were called anti-Semitic, and then they just gravitate towards Fuentes, like, oh, I guess I'm anti-Semitic. So I think that played a role, and also Netanyahu's decision in the Obama years to basically break with the Democratic Party and throw their lot in with the far right.
Yep.
Like, not a well thought out plan, guys. Like, have you seen who's in the alt-right?
I just remember there was a quote from an Israeli general, and like Michael Brooks would talk about how Israel was making common cause with right-wing, really like Nazi adjacent parties in Europe in the teens, and that an Israeli general somebody asked them, it's like, you realize, like, these Christian Zionists in America, they support Israel because they want you all to die in hellfire when Jesus returns. And the general was like, we'll deal with it then.
Yep.
And
they're dealing with it now, right?
It turns out this can happen before Jesus returns. And thank you for that theological pronouncement, Ryan.
There you go.
Ryan Grimm, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on. We will
Always a
link
pleasure.
to the fundraiser that you're doing to deal with this lawsuit coming from Britain and obviously to Drop Site and Breaking Points. Appreciate you coming on.
Appreciate that.
Thanks, Ryan.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.